Well, it's my privilege now to introduce our speaker today, my dear friend Stephen Poplin. I first met Stephen back in the 80s. We were both a little younger back then. Stephen became an ordained minister here at the church in 1988. Stephen's great love professionally is astrology. During the past month, I've been going out with Stephen at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening and watching the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which has been interesting to be with an astrologer explaining to me what this all means. And professionally, Stephen also is a practitioner of age regression. He's hypnotized thousands of people, taken them back to past lives, and it's for the purpose of healing. I remember that I visited Stephen years ago, back in 2008 actually, in Vienna, and Stephen speaks fluent German, and he was living professionally out there doing these past life regressions, and he just about had German down pat. But he said sometimes somebody would be in a hypnotic trance and they'd be talking German and he'd say a word he didn't understand, but they were lying down, so he was able to pull out his dictionary, German-English dictionary. Oh, that's what that word means, she just told me. Something about being a knight in Germany or something, you know. But anyway, Stephen's a delightful individual. Everybody likes Stephen. He's just got a really good spirit about him. So with that said, come on up, Stephen.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. That's always, it's been great hanging out with him for the last couple of months. He is also a fine person and a great roommate. And one specific thing about that time connected with wondering what my client had just said in that foreign language, you know, looking it up later, you know, and then finding out, like, I'm choking. So I'm going to be talking about wrapping it up 2020. And we're going to be looking forward to that day, probably. It's not going to be too long from now, less than a week. We're in the last days of December, looking forward towards January. Many times when I give some talks, I ask people to remember to turn your smartphones on. And then I get typically like, are you joking? And I said, am I Stephen? Yeah. But actually, because I'm an astrologer, because I am a metaphysician, I do pay attention to the signs, to the symbols, to the things that just come to us. And my goodness, have we gotten a lot of signs and symbols here just in the last couple of weeks. It was already mentioned here that, yeah, on the solstice just passed, very recently, we had this very rare alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. And so, yes, paying attention to what is going on. And it has been fairly exciting. This particular quote that Cynthia was sharing from Mark Twain really says a lot, but he was quite a clever fellow, I must say. The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. He, later in his life, he knew that the Halley's Comet, was going to be coming up here in a few years in his lifetime, and he already knew that he had been born when Halley's Comet came. And so he said, well, it would be very fitting if I were to take off when it comes back. And sure enough, that's what happened. My feeling, you know, from understanding that story is that this guy really was, you know, in that essence of the comet, you know, and wherever he would fly by, whether that be some places in Europe, and he also studied a bit of German and was making fun of the language as he would do. But again, wherever he went, quotes, wisdom, and then that man he flashed off, took off, went his own way, and we're the better for it. Now, we are just about ready to go into January. And so I'm going to be talking just a little bit about Janus. This was the two-headed god of ancient Rome. There was not really an equivalent of that from the Greek tradition, because the Romans were always stealing things from the Greeks. But in this particular essence, Janus was the god of doorways. And that doesn't sound so mighty. But then it became, of course, archways and portals and that stepping out on the dock, on the harbor, going onto a ship, and thus trade. But it then really started with the great portal, the great thing that marked the day. And that was over in the east when the sun rose. And at that very moment when the sun rose, that was a portal. That was a time when, wow, it just went through the door. It went into life, and light was here. And we're looking forward to that again and again. Back in the day, before the calendars were changed, Janus was also there ushering in the winter solstice, now sometimes called the Capricorn solstice, because that very same solstice is also recognized down in the south, down in Brazil, down in South Africa, and it's certainly not the winter solstice. It's the summer solstice for them. So Janus, and we get the word January from that, started off there with that sun rising on the solstice on the shortest day of the year up here in the north. And then the opposite, which was the summer solstice, or the Cancer solstice, that was when that was dedicated to Juno, and we get the month of June from that. So the beginning, the rise, the other door. And that is interesting. Edgar Cayce talked about God's other door. And that was when we die. And that is when we make those transitions and go into not death, but going into another life, a variation of life, another way of living and learning and expressing, but beyond the corporal, beyond the physical, moving on into another life. And I have been privy in my years of doing past life regressions of accompanying people through that other door. Fascinating. When they do die, they go oftentimes to what's called the borderland, or the bardo. And sometimes there is this confusion, sometimes there's a sense of like, what just happened? Especially if it happened to be on some battlefield someplace, or it was a traumatic or accident or something like that. And suddenly it's like they were no longer in the body. They had gone through God's other door. And here we are now in 2020, and with a pandemic. And so maybe just a moment here of quiet when we think about all of those who did go through God's other door. Blessings to them on their journeys. And we too, in our own congregation, we have lost some special people. In fact, an acknowledgement here for Bruce and his wife, Marty, who passed away. Lizelle Crowley is no longer with us. Other people that are close to us or in our periphery, in our groups, yes, they've gone on to that other door. Now, Janus as the January, as the two-headed God, facing the others. I was looking for a mask, actually, as a piece, I was going to put it on the back of my head and show the other face going off in the different direction. But the idea behind that, of course, is that one face is looking forward and the other one is backwards. We are moving towards the future and hopefully learning the lessons of the past. And here we are, alive, right here, right now, in the middle. And we have tomorrow, we have yesterday, but here we have today. Here we have right now. And that essence, again, Janus, the solstice, the sunrise, going through the portal, going through the arch, going through the gate, that moment is what it's about. And as soon as the sun rose, it was no longer Janus's job. That was Apollo, it was Helios, it was like, he did his job just to be there at the doorway. And January is coming. And we have had so many interesting signs. Hard to keep up with them with the eclipse cycles that just passed. And then we had, of course, then the solstice. And on that day, within hours of the exact solstice, we had the rare Jupiter and Saturn alignment. And although every 20 years they get together, but they are marked with a longitudinal line in the sky. And so a conjunction could be indeed like this, and they could be several degrees apart. But this particular one, they were longitude and latitude together. And that's what made it especially potent. And not only that, but even though they align every 20 years, they have a 200-year cycle in a particular element. And we're just now leaving the last 200 years when they aligned and aligned and aligned in the three signs of the element Earth. And so it would go to Taurus, to Virgo, to Capricorn. And we've had, like, as I say, 200 years of that. And this focus upon the great conjunctions, sometimes called the great mutations. Mutation meaning that it would change form. It would go from one element to the next element. And in that particular order, fire, earth, air, and water. And so we've gone through that earth time in the beginning of this origins of this country, 1776. They were aligning in fire signs. Fire, new, beginning, energy, revolution. Then came, of course, the Industrial Revolution, and all of those great things that we can look back on here, the labor-saving devices and earthy-oriented sorts of things, and even the blessings that we can have right here in a warm place. Take a look at our ancestors just recently, grandparents, great-grandparents, and all of the things that they did not have. We're talking here now with the iPhones and the iPads looking at me, and this is being broadcast out, on the World Wide Web. It's pretty amazing, all the different things going on here today. But back to the earth element of that 200-year phase. And yes, mining and taking things from the earth and building and construction and new innovations and railways and new devices and equipment and the automobile. All these, earthy things that you can touch and grab and sit in. Yeah, thank goodness for all of these goodies that we have, and the blessings that come from that earth sign phase. And now, just a week ago, begins this next 200-year phase in air signs, starting off right now with Aquarius, and then there will be Gemini, there will be Libra, around and about, for the next 200 years. A very exciting time because it's kind of a double emphasis of Aquarius, of the air sign. And by that, even though the ancients were just looking at the rare mutations and alignments and these phases that would last, hundreds of years, when the planet that is the ruler of Aquarius was discovered, as far as I'm concerned, in my humble opinion, I think that was a very good sign that the Age of Aquarius started at that point. 1781, midpoint between the American and the French revolutions, beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, and then look at all of those gadgets. It happens to coincide with this Earth sign with the Jupiter-Saturn, but it's revolutionary ideas, the Bill of Rights, the rights of men, the many things that have happened have been inspired here, in this air sign, this Aquarian age. It's really funny because this morning I turned on my computer, a very Aquarian tool, by the way, and I was listening to some music, and what would be playing but the Age of Aquarius. Let the sunshine in. This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. And I thought, again, well, what are the chances of that? Of course, I was listening to The Fifth Dimension, so the chances were pretty good. But still, makes a good little story. When we look at that, and here we are now, the separation of more than a 2,000-year cycle of the age of Pisces, and now we're in the age of Aquarius. And as I say, with my calculations, we've been here for a couple of 100 years. We now take this special alignment in air signs for the next 200 years that just started last solstice. But then we go back, when they happened the last time. And they happened the last time in Pisces, the age of Pisces I had mentioned. And that was around the year 1200 to 1425. And of course, we're talking about the Middle Ages, the late Middle Ages. St. Francis of Assisi was alive at that point, and the Magna Carta in England was foisted upon the king, who had to share his power. And from there came modern English common law, as well as the inspiration for the founders of this country that said, yeah, the limits of the king can be regulated, that we can also have our say. In, again, that time, it was the Jupiter-Saturn mutation, or phases, the evolutionary phases, I don't like that word mutation, in the air signs. And look at all the things that have happened, during that time. So it was the time of the troubadours and courtly love and lyrics and love poems and kind of like that knightly thing that inspired even King Arthur and those stories. But the biggest thing was a review and inspiration of the wisdom of the past. And so there was a lot of scholarship, a lot of it religious, in which the scribes, the clerics, the monks, across the world, they were looking at the old texts of Confucius and Taoism, Buddhism, also the Christian early things, and writing them down and recording them and giving them to their generations of that time. A very inspiring time. And I happened years ago, I collect little pieces of things as I come across them on the internet. A lot of jokes too, by the way, like those. But also some facts. And there was this really interesting map of Europe, and it showed different cities in Europe and the date that the universities there were established in the different countries. And I just came across it accidentally here in this last week, preparing for a couple of different talks. And right in that phase, from 1200 to 1400, probably 80 or 85% of the universities in Europe were established during that time when they had the air sign alignments. But it was during the Pisces age. What's going to happen now with an air sign alignments, Aquarius phase starting right now? We're in it right now. We went through the portal, we went through the doorway, okay? And Janus just said, welcome, you know. We're now in this, as I say, a double Aquarian phase, which to me is very exciting. Established, you know, in the age of Aquarius, and now Jupiter, Saturn plays along. I feel like it's, you know, divine wisdom going on. We have now established this material world where the possibilities of everyone taking care of all the necessary things, the important things, the things that's going to not only help us to have security and safety, but also abundance and warmth and all of the good things of the earth. It moves again into the air signs, and that is a bit more thoughtful. It is thinking more, it's reasoning more, and it's coming up very much like the last time that we did that with the Magna Carta, with the let's see what the ancients had to say and let's write them down and let's establish some universities. The last time that this happened, wow, what's going to happen now? I'm looking forward to like the federation, the intergalactic federation of universities. Boy, we need some download of some wisdom right now. Thank you. Recognize, of course, that this is an air sign phase and that we have to start thinking a little bit more. I've been thinking, and I was hanging out with George Michaelo, and he told me about this online website about you can get some critical thinking cards. Well, I went ahead and sent off for my critical thinking cards, and here's my pack right here. It's all right there, critical thinking. We need it. It's just like little flashcards, but you know, with my esoteric metaphysical slant, I sometimes use it like a tarot card. You know, it says, so which part of the brain should we use today? You know, looking at this particular debate, you know, in Congress or online or something like that, what are the elements of the lack of critical thinking right now? Pull out a card. Here it is. My goodness. Sleepy. We look again at Janus, the two-headed god, at this time, and remembering one face looking into the future, one into the past. And that is very, very helpful. Because, you know, people can get stuck, sometimes stuck in their own thinking, stuck in their emotions. And so some are like in the past, you know, and the face pointing forward is kind of blocked. Little hood in front, a hoodie in the front, the back, of course. Looking backwards into like, oh, what happened to me when I was 12? You know, difficult times. Oh yeah, that high school thing, I'm really still pissed off at that. But then it slows us down. It freezes us. We're stuck. But there can be also some who are like, just, you know, let's not look at the past, and I'm just going to be looking at the future, you know. And one day, it's going to come. One day. I'm just waiting. Now, I lived a few years over in the Midwest, and think about those fields, really vast fields, you know, it just goes on and on. And so there was this farmer just looking at the fields, and it was a nice sunny day, and he was just watching the fields, and all the work was done. He was just waiting. And then he felt the glory of the Lord. And he was saying, wow, Lord, look at all this. It's so big. And I know for you that this is just a little thing. Lord, to you, what would be $1 million? And the Lord says, $1 million? That's like a penny. It's just a penny. And the farmer says, oh, wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. Lord, to you, what is 1,000 years? And the Lord says, 1,000 years? Oh, that's just a minute. And the farmer says, wow, that's just amazing. Lord, may I ask you, just ask a favor. Can I have a penny? And the Lord says, oh, certainly, in a minute. So yeah, some people are looking, you know, down the road and hoping for something, but again, here we are, right between, and this is where we're supposed to be living, right here, right now. And so, I feel very excited about what's happening right now and what we can do, but recognizing that we are the captains of our own ship. And, you know, pay attention to what Mark Twain said, you know, if you want to be a good Halley's Comet person, you know, that you are in this moving moment of now, and you use the wisdom of your own past, of the things that you have learned, your own education, to make you better informed, to make these decisions of saying, whew, today, on this day, it's a new day, it's another day for me, and what shall I do? What shall we do? How can I make this maybe a little bit better? Not only for myself, but for others. We're not alone. We need each other, and I must admit there's thank goodness it's a great group here, and I feel very blessed to be a part of this fellowship and this wonderful gathering of people. Yeah, so as we are living in the now and remembering that in the future, yeah, let's do something together. Let's make something great together. That is what I wish for you, to recognize you are surfing the now in the ever-moving present, and let's use the wisdom of what we have learned with the vision of what may be in the future, and cowabunga. Just do it, okay? Thank you.